There is a kind of person who, the moment they say they don't want to have children, the world immediately assumes they are selfish, cold, or afraid of responsibility. But few ever realize that behind that choice is not a rejection of life, but a psychological layer that is hidden, deep, and achingly tender. A place where the past, fear, and kindness intersect in silence. And if one becomes quiet enough to truly see, it becomes clear. It is not children they fear, but the possibility of repeating what once hurt them. There are people who, when they say, "I don't want children," lower their voice to almost a whisper, as though confessing a secret that shouldn't be heard too clearly. There is no defiance, no intention to challenge society, only a kind of hesitation that has no proper name. They don't argue, nor do they explain. They simply remain silent, and it is precisely that silence that makes others assume they are avoiding responsibility or that they dislike children. But if you look closely, something else is quietly shifting beneath the surface, not in the words themselves, but in the way they glance down at their hands when someone asks, "Then who will take care of you in the future?" In the soft exhale they release when they hear, "You'll change your mind eventually." It feels as if every question society throws at them brushes against a hazy corner of memory, a corner they do not wish to open. Strangely, they themselves aren't angry. They only know that each time someone asks why they don't want children, something inside them makes a faint sound, like old wood creaking when the wind slips through an abandoned barn. Part of that sound comes from practical worries, money, work, an uncertain future. But the deepest part, the part they avoid the most, comes from somewhere else. From a fragment of childhood memory lying still in a dark corner, where they once wished someone had been gentler with them, understood them more, or simply looked at them with eyes that didn't make their heart shrink. Some people grow up in houses full of slamming doors and silences stretched tight like violin strings. Some grow up surrounded by arguments. Others grow up in rooms so wide yet so empty that every emotion they had bounced back onto themselves. As adults, they learn to say they're fine, learn to smile, learn to hide what no one sees. But then a simple question about having children cracks that surface just slightly, revealing a nameless fear. The fear that one day they might not be gentle enough, safe enough, or enough of the person they once longed for when they were a child. And so they choose silence. Not because they have no answer, but because the real answer is too private, too deep, too difficult to articulate. They do not say, "I'm afraid," even though something inside them resembles fear. They do not say, "My childhood wasn't easy," even though that truth lives in every emotional cell. They only say, "I don't want to have children," and that sentence, for them, is the simplest way to preserve a part of their memory they are not yet ready to touch again. That is why what we hear is never the full truth. Behind a choice that seems indifferent may lie a heart that has been through too much to dare to repeat a life cycle they themselves walked through with far too many wounds. There is one thing few people are willing to admit. Many assume that those who do not want children simply dislike them, are selfish, or love their freedom too much. But when you look deeper, you see the opposite. These individuals are often the very ones who understand the weight of a child more clearly than anyone else. They are not indifferent. They are not numb. They are sensitive, so sensitive that the mere thought of a small soul living inside a house, once filled with sighs, pain, and coldness, makes them recoil, as though touching the burning edge of their own memory. They are not avoiding children. They are avoiding themselves, the version of themselves they fear might appear if one day they became parents. If you reverse the common assumption, you'll notice the people who want children easily are sometimes the ones who have never touched the deepest wounds within themselves, while those who do not want children are often the ones who have seen far too clearly the real cost of raising a soul, especially when their own soul once grew up in scarcity, in insecurity, in long stretches of silence that made any child shrink, curl inward, or disappear from their own world. They grew up in spaces where emotions had no names, where anger had no explanations, where love could be withdrawn at any moment like an invisible punishment. And because they have lived through all of this, they understand profoundly. To raise a child, you need a heart steady enough not to repeat what once hurt you, But the human heart is complicated. When they grow up, the first thing they learn is not how to love well, but how to fear loving the wrong way. Some look at their own lives and see exhaustion between their parents, see fractures passed down through generations like a silent illness, see missing embraces, apologies that never arrived, conversations they waited for but never came, and they make a quiet vow: I will never let a child suffer those things because of me. People assume they are irresponsible, but the truth is, they are too responsible. So much so that they fear the wounds they have not yet healed might seep into every moment of parenthood. They fear that the silence once used against them will become the unconscious language they pass on. They fear that on some tired day, they might utter the very same sentence they once heard, the sentence that hurt them so much they wished they could disappear from that house. They fear themselves, or at least the shadow they carry from childhood. And this fear is the most misunderstood part. Outsiders see only refusal, but inside is an entire journey of struggle and awakening. This fear does not make them weak. It is a sign that they have seen their own darkness clearly. They understand a truth many people avoid, that raising a child requires not only love, but wholeness. A heart that has not healed can, without meaning to, turn into an invisible blade, not intending to harm, yet still leaving cuts. Few people know this. Many who choose not to have children do so not because they lack faith in children, but because they do not fully trust the darker corners within themselves, the corners they have been trying to hide for so long. They grew up feeling they had to be careful when breathing, careful when speaking, careful when showing emotion, and when they imagine a child looking up at them with round, trusting eyes, their heart tightens, afraid they will not be gentle enough, soft enough, or different enough from what they once endured. But this very awareness opens a new perspective. Those who refuse to have children are not lacking the capacity to love. On the contrary, they understand love so deeply that they know love must come with the responsibility of not harming another life. They are not rejecting children. They are refusing to let their own pain spill into someone else's world. And perhaps, for the first time in their lives, this act of stopping is an act of love. There is something psychology has made exceptionally clear. Human beings act not only out of desire, but also out of unconscious memories programmed into them since childhood. These memories become survival mechanisms, directing us in ways we do not even notice. And for those who do not want to have children, this mechanism is not an act of running away, but an act of protecting themselves and protecting the life that could one day depend on them. The fear of repeating a cycle of pain is not some vague, abstract worry. It is a biological response, encoded in the brain as a warning. When a child grows up in an unstable environment, their nervous system learns to see the world as a place that is never entirely safe. The brain forms defensive pathways that continue to fire even after the child becomes an adult. This is known as neuroceptive threat, the sensation of danger activating even when no real danger is present. And when that adult thinks about having a child, those pathways light up, whispering, "Be careful. Do not step into something that could recreate the very tragedy you once lived through." So when they say, "I don't want children," what they are truly saying is, "I recognize the dark places within myself." Not everyone has the ability to look inward with such clarity. Psychology calls this insightful avoidance. Avoidance not born from weakness, but from understanding the psychological consequences that could unfold. Outsiders think they fear responsibility, but in reality, they acknowledge responsibility so deeply that they cannot bear the thought of a child paying the price for wounds they have not yet healed. When someone grows up in a turbulent childhood, they often develop two core beliefs. First, I am not good enough to love someone in a healthy way. Second, my love might hurt others even if I don't want it to. These beliefs do not come from logic. They come from years of being forced into the role of the adult when they were still a child. From moments of being responsible for the emotions of grown-ups, from the countless times they learned to stay silent because speaking up only made everything worse. The brain remembers all of it and turns caution into a survival pattern. Therefore, refusing to have children is, for them, an outcome of self-preservation, not avoidance. What is fascinating is that in neuroscience, The more sensitive a person is to pain, the stronger their defensive mechanisms tend to be. And these individuals are often the deeply sensitive souls by nature. They are not afraid of children. They are afraid of the impact their unhealed selves could have on a fragile, developing mind. They understand the power of love, but they also understand the destruction that unconscious wounds can bring. People call them complicated. In truth, they are simply aware. They also know that parenthood is not just about providing materially or teaching right from wrong. It is about becoming an emotionally safe environment, something they never had, and something they may not yet know how to build. Developmental psychology calls this emotional scaffolding, the capacity to support a child's inner world. When they ask themselves, "Can I do that?" it is not self-doubt. It is a profound humility before the weight of raising a human soul. And it is this awareness that leads them to one conclusion: to pause, not out of fear, but out of the understanding that love alone is not enough to raise someone whole. It requires insight, inner peace, a heart that no longer trembles at the sound of a door slammed shut, a mind no longer on alert every time someone's expression shifts. In a world where many have children because of pressure, expectation, or habit, those who dare to say, "I'm not sure I can do that well," are the ones operating from a higher consciousness. They are not avoiding life. They are choosing not to recreate the darkest chapters of their own. And in that moment, fear is no longer what controls them. It becomes a reminder. Live with enough awareness so that no soul has to carry the weight of what you have not yet healed. That is not weakness. That is maturity. There is a moment when trying to understand those who do not want children, in which every surface-level explanation suddenly feels too small, and we realize that everything the world projects onto them, selfishness, fear of responsibility, coldness, never actually touches their truth. Because that truth does not live on their lips, nor in the answers they are forced to give society. It lives somewhere quieter, deeper, in the memories no one sees, in the fears no one touches, and in the silent vows they made to themselves in childhood. A vow the world knows nothing about. I will stop this cycle, no matter what it takes. It is at this point that we begin to see something clearly. Many people who do not want children are not rejecting parenthood. They are protecting a child, the child they once were. They are not resisting the future. They are trying to mend the past. But because others refuse to look deeply, they see only the surface, the refusal. They do not see the submerged part, the strenuous kindness that holds it. Have you ever noticed that those who hurt the most are often the most contemplative? Not because they are weak, but because they understand the cost of not looking inward. They know that a child does not just need to be cared for with hands, but with a heart, with peace, with a capacity to love without unconsciously repeating what once scarred them. They know that a child does not need perfect parents, but parents who have seen themselves deeply enough not to harm anyone in the dark. And this leads to the most important shift in awareness. Sometimes, the person who does not want children has gone farther on the journey of parenthood than those who actually have them, because they have dared to face the question few ever ask themselves: can I love a child without unconsciously passing on my wounds? It is not an easy question. It demands a kind of honesty that hurts, and many, instead of avoiding it, choose to stop, not out of fear, but out of reverence for life. People on the outside will not understand this, because they only see the final decision, not the silent journey that preceded it. They do not see the nights spent wondering whether they are peaceful enough inside to be a safe place for another soul. They do not see the moments when someone's shifting expression startles them, reminding them that old wounds still tremble within their body. They do not see the tears falling quietly when they realize, I am not fully healed yet. But they see one thing: the decision, and they think they understand. Awareness deepens when we draw a line between fear and responsibility. Fear makes people run. Responsibility makes people stop. And stopping sometimes is far harder than continuing on as everyone expects. This is also when one recognizes another truth. Not wanting children is not an emotional deficit. It can be one of the most mature forms of love. Not love driven by instinct, but love guided by consciousness. Not love that seeks to fill a void, but love that refuses to make another carry a wound. Not impulsive love, but lucid love. And here lies the truth the outside world never sees. That sometimes refusing something beautiful is not a lack of love, but the result of understanding love too deeply, knowing that you cannot always offer it safely. That some hearts do not want children because they cherish life too much to gamble it against what they have not yet healed. That some decisions, which seem cold at first glance, are born from the warmest part of a human being. The revelation here is not surprise, but recognition, that kindness sometimes takes the shape of stopping. And once you see that, you no longer look at them with judgment. You look at them with quiet respect. There was a time when many believed that a person's life was only truly complete when they continued a bloodline, when they brought a child into the world and left their mark upon it. But for those whose childhoods were filled with fine fractures, for those who know too well what it feels like to be loved the wrong way so deeply that the echo follows them into adulthood, they understand a very different truth. Not everyone is born to continue something. Sometimes they are born to stop. And in that stopping, a new form of freedom and healing begins to unfold. Existential awakening happens when someone looks directly at the biggest question of their life. What am I living for? Not to please their parents, nor to follow the mold society expects of them, but to live honestly with their weariness and the quiet longing within. And when they ask themselves this, they suddenly realize that having children is not the only path to a meaningful life. Meaning is not something passed down through blood. It is something shaped by how we live, how we love, how we stop when pain needs to be put down. Some people grow up carrying the feeling that they must always continue something, continue their parents' expectations, continue the role of the dutiful child, continue the sacrifices the previous generation poured out for them, and they hold that responsibility like a debt. But when they finally look back at everything, they discover a truth so painful it stops them in their tracks. Not everything passed down must be kept. Some things are inherited through blood, but some things are inherited through pain. And not all pain is meant to be handed to a new life. The moment they realize this is the moment they hit bottom. Not the bottom of despair, but the bottom of truth, where they can finally see how exhausted they are from carrying things that were never theirs to bear. They see their childhood self curled up in a corner, afraid to bother anyone, afraid to be wrong, afraid to exist too loudly. They see their present self, still learning to soften day by day, still trying to love themselves more gently, more kindly. And then they understand, my life cannot be a vessel for healing someone else if I am still stitching together my own pieces. Awakening is not an explosion. It is like a faint beam of light slipping into a dark room just enough to reveal the shape of the wound. And from that moment on, they no longer feel guilty saying, I don't want children. They no longer feel abnormal or lacking. They begin to feel honest. And it is that honesty that leads them to recognize something important. Human beings are not born to continue a lineage. Human beings are born to find their way back to themselves. Some find that path through becoming better parents than the generation before them. Others find that path by not becoming parents at all. Both paths are beautiful. Both have value. Both are forms of healing. The deepest pain is realizing you cannot give what you never received. The deepest understanding is knowing that not continuing a cycle is its own form of love. The deepest release is accepting that your life can hold meaning in a way completely different from anyone's expectations. Some choose to have children to extend love. Some choose not to have children to end pain. And in that choice, the beauty does not lie in whether or not a child exists, but in the courageous act of looking inward and choosing to live a life that does not repeat what they once endured. Existential awakening is not about finding answers. It is about finding peace. And when they finally understand that this peace does not come from continuing a bloodline, but from freeing themselves from the old spiral, they let go, gently, without fear, without self-blame. Only a person learning to live according to the quiet, steady rhythm of their own heart remains. There is a moment in one's journey of growing up when a person looks back and realizes that healing is not about returning to fix the world, nor about forgiving everyone who once caused them pain. Healing, first and last, is an act of returning to one's own heart, to the inner ground that has always been waiting for their arrival. And when they pause before a decision as significant as choosing not to have children, what rises within them is not resentment or rejection, but a strange kind of peace. The peace of not having to continue any cycle. the peace of living at the slow rhythm their heart chooses. Some believe that healing requires forgiving those who caused harm, reopening the doors that once made them tremble. But those who have walked through fear, through the long contemplations of their own inner world, understand something deeper. Forgiveness is not a prerequisite for a free heart. Sometimes, forgiveness is simply setting the burden down, refusing to carry it for even one more second. Sometimes, forgiveness is not reconciliation with another person, but reconciliation with the part of oneself still straining to be strong. Healing does not need to be loud. It can be a long exhale after years of holding one's breath, a softer gaze toward oneself, a quiet decision not to walk a path others expect. And in that silence, a beautiful philosophical truth begins to unfold. Human beings are not born to fulfill the duty of a bloodline or conform to social molds. Human beings are born to seek their essence. That essence may lie in becoming a parent, but it may also lie in a life full of passion, depth, and freedom. It may lie in caring for others, but it may also lie in nurturing oneself. Those who say, "I don't want children," rarely say it with anger. They say it with clarity. They understand that life does not always need new replicas to be meaningful. Sometimes life only needs the person living it to live in harmony with their own soul, unbound, unpressured, no longer continuing what their heart no longer wishes to carry. And once they understand this, a new kind of freedom is born within them. The freedom from other people's expectations. The freedom not to become something simply because tradition dictates it. The freedom to stop without feeling incomplete. This freedom is light yet deep, quiet yet luminous. It is not rebellion. It is a return to a version of themselves they had forgotten amid the noise of life. In existential philosophy, a person truly lives only when they recognize their right to choose their own path and to take responsibility for it with calm, without torment. Those who choose not to have children are walking precisely that path. They do not deny the sacredness of raising a child. They simply understand that this sacredness is not what their heart is moving toward. And there is nothing wrong with listening to one's own inner rhythm. When they release what does not belong to them, when they stop trying to fulfill family expectations or tradition, they begin to see the internal space within themselves more clearly. A space that was once crowded with anxiety, fear, and unhealed memories. But now, without the pressure to become a parent to someone else, they can begin becoming a parent to themselves, tending to the child once left behind in silence. And in that moment, they understand a simple yet profound truth. Healing is not forgiving the world. Healing is no longer letting that world hold you captive. Healing is returning freedom to the heart, so it no longer has to carry what it no longer wishes to bear. When the heart is returned to itself, it begins to beat a new rhythm, slower, more peaceful, fuller, and in that rhythm, one no longer chases lineage, tradition, or expectation. They simply live. There is a quiet truth many people never realize. Wounds do not disappear when we grow up. They simply change shape, slipping silently into the choices we believe we are freely making. But then one day, when we are quiet enough to look back, we begin to see a gentler truth, that wounds do not come to imprison us. They come to be seen, and once they are seen, the cycle we once thought inescapable begins to dissolve, softly, like smoke. Those who choose not to have children are sometimes the ones who reach this truth earlier. They no longer run from pain, nor try to prove anything to the world. They simply stop, face the fractures in their own hearts, and say with deep honesty, "I am tired, I am hurt, and I want to stop." This stopping is not a failure, but the moment a person discovers kindness toward themselves, the moment they understand that not every path must lead to bringing a child into the world, the moment they realize that an act of love is sometimes choosing not to let another person inherit their pain. And in that moment, something small yet profoundly important happens. They see themselves. They see the child who once curled quietly in the corner of a room. They see the adult who has lived too many years on high alert. They see a heart layered with defenses yet still longing, silently, to soften. That seeing, gentle in touch yet shattering in depth, is the first step toward healing. Because when pain is called by its true name, it loses its power over us. It no longer forces us into unconscious choices. It no longer compels us to reenact old cycles. It simply stands there, as a part of us not denied, yet no longer in control. And when that happens, the cycle ends quietly, like a door closing without a sound. Hope lives here. You do not need to be perfect to end a cycle. You only need to be honest enough to see your own pain, and tender enough not to pass it on to another generation. That alone is already a complete form of love. And if someone out there is hearing these words and feels their heart lighten just a little, know this: you are not alone. Everyone has the right to choose the path that brings them more peace, more healing, more freedom. And sometimes, that path is the path of stopping. When a wound is seen, it no longer demands that we pay a price. It simply reminds us that we have walked far enough to begin a life that no longer repeats what once hurt us. And in that quiet clarity, something deeply human begins to bloom: hope. Hope for a version of ourselves that is lighter, truer, and freer.